Hey, what's up? Back at you with another video. Today we're going to be watching Clement Manyathela. It's a video that I'm late to do, but I found his remarks, his comments, his input very enlightening and very nice to chill and listen to for some time. He's a very palatable dude to listen to. Absolutely beautiful, man. I feel like I can hug him. No homo, man. Totally, absolutely 100% straight like a laser. So he's talking about the merit thing, the twisting from the right-wingers, the grifters, and the racists. You know that there's the Employment Equity Act. The government is trying to push a little bit further for white companies, white employers to employ more black people, because what we know about employment in South Africa is that unemployment for white people is incredibly low and black people is incredibly high. And representations on boards is a disproportionate representation of what our country looks like. With so many black people, you've got so little of them occupying high positions, despite the attempts that have been made, BEE, whatnot, what have you. I mean, me and all of this BEE stuff, I've never pursued to become employed. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm proud to have never worked a job. I'm proud to have never been in that process where I'm working for somebody, especially during this time and in this place, in this South Africa, where having a job and being dependent on a white employer is something that is being made so shameful by the racists, the white employers themselves. They are speaking to us as a class of people who are workers, and we're being defined as a people who cannot do for themselves. So because of such a climate, such a hostility, I'm happy to have never been employed. I'm not believing that there's anything really wrong with being employed. I, in fact, am employing somebody helping me with this work currently, and employment is a very dignified and proper thing. There's totally nothing wrong with it at all. But during this time, I just think that it's important for me to mention that, because as we take sides, whether you're on the side of the DA who say that hands off, laissez-faire, let the employer decide themselves, and others are saying no, give some penalties if there's a lot of white people employed. And some are saying, you see, the ANC has come now trying to get stupid black people to get hired to black positions. If you are wondering where I am in all of these things, I'm just happy to share that with you, that I'm not an employee. I've never sought employment. As far as BE and whatever goes on the entrepreneurial side, I am seeing or have witnessed BEE to be a good thing, particularly for the services that I've rendered for government. I've rendered services for creation of websites, creation of banners, creation of business cards, brochures, promo videos. I've supplied those services to the NAVF and SEDA, SEDA, the Small Enterprise Development Agency. So they have a walk-in center where a startup entrepreneur, if you're black and you don't have the bare resources to get started or get knowledgeable about a business, they have free courses that you can sign up for. And those free courses are for people who are previously excluded from an education about businesses. And so beyond getting these free tutorials, if you now need business plans and a website to establish yourself and get on your feet, they then hire service providers like us, talented people who then put together these things for these startup entrepreneurs. And me, myself, BEE, I've never been awarded much of a large tender or anything like that. Totally. I've never had any supply contract whatsoever. This is the only government work that I've done. And I've been able to do it because they wanted BEE suppliers. So I'm super talented and super capable to supply these services. And for that opportunity, the government has given the offers to black businesses so that we don't go there and be competing with white people. They can then go and, of course, primarily occupy their private spaces where they are doing large ads and big commercials, via big agencies with, big monies and expensive cameras, etc. You understand? So now Clement Manyathela is here speaking on this issue of the Employment Equity Act, and he's going to be speaking clarity to the situation, to speak to the fact that, listen, there's a group out here who, of course, are interested in giving a racist narrative out of this. We saw it even with Elon Musk saying that there are DEI hires. They are saying there are DEI pilots. So there were women. I think there was a collision between a military helicopter and a plane that was landing, and the pilot might have been a woman. And Elon Musk started saying, you see, that's why we need to get rid of DEI. But then when you look at truly what the aviation industry is about and how people become qualified to fly, there's never been any DEI about it. Aviation requires you to have hours of flight time, and that's not something that you can get because your skin is a certain color. So there are these people locally as well who are trying to twist things and have you believe that the ANC is pushing for illiterates, delinquents, idiots, the incompetent to go and participate in high places. They're saying the ANC is asking the basketball league to let in the shortest black people possible. And all of this is ridiculous. No, it's saying let black people in. They are just as tall as the white people. So let's listen to Clement as he clarifies things for the idiots out there. I hope you are not one of them.
Now, can we talk about the DA court case? The DA has taken the government that it's part of, to court over the new employment equity targets for companies. So the party is against the amendments to the Employment Equity Act. And the amendment empowers the Minister of Labour to set numerical targets for equitable representation of, and this is very important, right? Because, and this is not what a lot of people who are against transformation, a lot of people who are against employment equity often say. This is very important. I'm going to repeat that. This amendment empowers the Minister of Labour to set numerical targets for equitable representation of suitably qualified individuals from designated groups of all occupational levels. And I'm emphasizing that because often when we talk about transformation, employment equity legislation, there are people who want you to believe that this legislation is meant to take whoever is a woman, whether they qualify or not. Oh, just take that woman. Oh, just take that guy because he's black. Huh? Oh, take that person who lives who has a disability just on the basis that they have a disability. That's rubbish. That's never been the intention of this legislation. It must still be suitably qualified individuals from the designated groups that are being targeted, right? So these are flexible employment equity targets. They are not like rigid mandatory quotas. Employers can set their annual numerical targets in their employment equity plans, which must comply with sectoral targets. Employers can also justify their failure to meet the targets on reasonable grounds, obviously. Again, the DA will want you to believe that, oh my God, if you fail to reach the target, there's no way you can even negotiate that. When I was looking at this legislation this morning, there are reasons for non-compliance. For instance, if there are not enough job openings or the employer cannot find suitable candidates from the designated groups that are underrepresented for the available positions, the employer can say so, that I've tried, but I haven't found, and they can provide proof that I've tried, I just didn't have suitable candidates for this. And that's a reasonable explanation to why you're not meeting the targets, right? You could also justify if there are limited opportunities for promotion within the organization and the employer cannot provide promotion opportunities to designated group, or maybe there are not enough individuals from designated groups with the necessary qualifications, skills, or experience to fill the positions. And I can go on and on and on. I mean, even employers can argue about the economic downturns, whether it's COVID-19 or load shedding. You can argue that I've significantly been impacted. My company has been impacted. And that ability to achieve the targets is hampered. Those are some of the reasonable grounds that you can give for not meeting the targets. So the Department of Labor, of Employment and Labor, has published the 5-year employment equity targets for, I think, 18 economic sectors. So they set percentages of the 4 upper occupational levels, like top management, senior management, professionally qualified or middle management, and the skills, technical or junior management, to be occupied by historically disadvantaged groups of people according to race, gender, and disability. Because they've seen that there's an underrepresentation of certain races. And the whole aim is to address that underrepresentation of the designated groups in the workplace in relation to, of course, the economically active population. But, and this is important, employers would be required to comply with their own set annual employment targets. So it's not like government comes and says, 10 people in your company must be black, or must be Indian, or must be white, or must have a disability. That's not how it works. Government comes with targets, but government says, you know what? We understand that contexts are different. If you live in Durban, for instance, and that's an argument the DA uses a lot, if you live in Durban and maybe there are obviously maybe perhaps where you are concentrated more people of Indian descent living in Durban, you can set your own targets as an employer. If you're living in the Western Cape where there are, if you will, colored people or mixed race people, that's what you can set as your targets as a company and say, this is what we are setting as a company as targets, right? So employers are required to comply with their own set annual employment targets towards the achievement of the 5-year plan sector targets. So, and then non-compliance with the act, of course, carries penalties, cancellation of state contracts. It's going to be difficult for you to do business with the state. But here's where the DA is arguing. The DA argues that if the law is enacted, a race belonging to a specific group concentrated in a geographical area could face exclusion from employment based on the national quota set by the minister. And I think the DA, once again, has proven how anti-transformation or anti-redress they are. Because they're arguing that the best path to achieving redress is through economic growth, through job creation, through inclusion. They argue that the new targets would drive away investors and shrink economic growth. I mean, do you think this creates a barrier to employment, these regulations, or advancement for members of particular racial groups in a particular area? And what do you think must be done to redress the injustices of the past? What must be done to level the playing field? Because the DA is making all sorts of arguments about, let's just do it through creating jobs. Yes, but when jobs are created, people who are being employed, through that we're seeing an underrepresentation of certain races. And not because there are no qualified people of those races who can occupy those positions, but because corporate South Africa sometimes is just not interested to transform. You must go look at the employment equity, the Commission for Employment Equity. They always reveal, year after year, they reveal how workplace transformation remains sluggish.
Yes.
Every year they're telling us that there's still an overrepresentation of white people in top and senior management positions.
Yes.
And this is in all provinces. I mean, the construction, the finance and the business sectors were the slowest in terms of transformation in the workplace in line with affirmative action. So basically, white males are still ranked high in top management positions at 56.4% in the private sector, and black Africans occupy only 15% of management positions. What does that tell you about a country when you look at how many black people live here, how many white people live here?
Yes.
And for me, it shows companies are refusing to transform. Corporate South Africa, I don't think, is interested in transformation.
And hold up. Let me make a comment. This situation, ladies and gentlemen, is not a lie. The Democratic Alliance can go up and down to court and play this whole thing, man. We know how the world is being ran. We know how certain people play victim when they are winning. There's just this game of the mind that you need to be able to see and understand. The Democratic Alliance is just lying to the people of this country overall. They are a political party of corporations and white people whom they govern for. Some people vote for them because of the service delivery, but they represent as well the racist aspirations of many white supremacist-minded people. And so when you see them do this, go to court, defend this like it's an injustice, looking like they are fighting for actual justice, they are actually an evil presence representing people they know are evil and are carrying out evil in this country. On the employment side, you heard me earlier said, I'm not on the employment side whatsoever. I'm on the business side. I can tell you some things about how, as an entrepreneur, as a black person, because you're starting your business within an established economy with a value chain, either position yourself further at the back, further forward, as a producer, or maybe as a retailer, or as a packager, or as a production line where you produce the things, potato chips when they're coming from potatoes in the ground, whatsoever. Because you're coming into an established system, you'd think that entrepreneurship represents absolute freedom, especially if you're employed and you felt what it's like to always walk in and look at a white guy who is paying you, but you can see just carries a subhuman view of who you are. You can see his extractionary vampire thirst for your blood and your sweat. And you can see how little of an appreciation he has. You can see how little he values your life. You can feel like this is your prison warden, one whom you wake up in the morning and you straight up go report to. And you think entrepreneurship represents absolute freedom, the outside, where you can do whatever you like, increase your earning potential, yada, yada, yada. Ads will hit you and give you that impression about entrepreneurship. But you are going to build your business and you're going to require things like payment connections, payment integrations. Let's say this is a situation that I'm facing and I've actually shot a video that I'm just holding before I publish. I'm facing some issues with a Cape Town-based payment gateway that is being restrictive, exclusionary, not wanting to give me the premier package service, which I've had from them before. Now that I've returned, I won't mention too much about this situation, but now that I've returned to them as a client, they've now created a second-class package of the service they used to give, and they're saying, I am high risk and I do not qualify for this, etc., etc. I should take this second package. And it has to do with them allowing me to connect my website into the economy and have my tentacles, just in reach of people's wallets as they are shopping on their phones. I am just right there, tempting them with some products, ready to rip some money out of their pockets and put it inside mine. They are denying me that. And I know very, very much so the importance of e-commerce, the digital economy, the popularity that black people have been able to see themselves experience on platforms such as TikTok. You'll have seen people get massive views. There's an opportunity there for these many people who just get these, cheap views to turn those views into customers, if possible. So there's a huge amount of potential for black people to, find a way to extract money. But there's a bridge that you have to cross. You can't code your website all the way to be able to have somebody put their credit card in and your money pulls that money out. No, now you have to go and do an integration. So now you're not just Chuck Norrising, doing everything by yourself all the way from the beginning to the end. No, now for you to get to the end, you now need to pass a toll gate. You need to pass a South African white-owned company that is knowing what your intentions are. They can see that you've got a white mind if you've managed to start a website and you're now trying to sell your products directly to the white person, and you've got a way to market your products. You're active on TikTok. You're putting yourself out as a business person. You're ready. You're doing this. They're going to see that and decide, shall we, the gods, allow this person entry? And there's Of course, no. You go now and connect your store via something else over there. So then the DA is a Cape Town-based party that knows that within this company here, we are running monopolies on selling online. Within here, we are running monopolies on selling liquor to these blacks. Within here, we are running monopolies on who can create products and package them like we white people can. We make sure to deny these blacks when they come. When they approach this company, they don't know. These are our boys. Boys, give them the cheap packaging so that their products look cheap and they only go to the cheapest stores. You understand? So let's listen a bit more to Clement as he tells you this situation. It's real. It's really real. I myself currently am going to be fighting this situation and I'm going to bring it to YouTube. I'm going to write letters and read them to this company and ask them, because the customer service, one way that you really see that these people are blackballing you is that their customer service is one that gives you such short, vague responses that really don't take much of a consideration to the journey they know you've walked till this point where you now want to just connect. You've earned your way. You fought. When you arrive at this point, they know that you are pretty much on your knees. You are using a platform like Shopify, which only has a limited number of payment gateways that you can connect to in South Africa, and they are the biggest. And so they know that you're coming to them logically because you know that Shopify has recommended you to them. And then when you try to say, hey, let's finally do this, they give you these very short, demeaning answers that put you on your knees. And you will now be typing emails begging, not knowing that this is discrimination. They are turning entrepreneurs into beggars. You know how you put out your CV and you are praying now with your mom, your aunt, your sister. You're calling your uncle now who's a prayer warrior. You all have agreed now at 9, call me. We're going to pray together on the phone for 1 hour, waiting for yourself to get a position. That nightmare of being on your knees, hoping and begging, they'll put you in that position even as an entrepreneur, where you now have to, may you please grace me? And you've applied capital, my brother. You've got experience. You probably worked a job where you got an understanding of this business for you to be able to now start it. You done had your logo out. You done have your banners out. You done printed your car with this branding of this business that you like. And then when you arrive there, so we will see and bring a fight ourselves as well to say, hey, we know this South Africa. It's happening. Others, come forward. Have you experienced such?
It shows companies are refusing to transform. Corporate South Africa, I don't think, is interested in transformation. Parts of it. And I don't know if the companies realize that by refusing to comply with affirmative action, they're actually an impediment to the country's progress. I mean, the original Employment Equity Act of 1998 was implemented with the aim of preventing discrimination in the workplace and to address the country's history of structural exclusion on the basis of race. And these targets the DA is challenging, as I said, are going to be based on the reality of the various sectors. But the DA wants you to believe that colored people are going to lose their jobs, or people of Indian descent are going to lose their jobs. That's why it's important to read the actual law, read the regulations, and not just take what politicians tell you, whether it's the DA or the ANC, because then you see the meat, what the companies are actually given the leverage to do. But the DA is good with fearmongering.
Yes.
That's what they excel in, actually.
Yeah.
Let me know your thoughts. 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702. Between 10 and 11 o'clock, we're going to be in conversation with the Freedom Front Plus leader, Dr. Corné Mulder. His party is part of the Government of National Unity. So we'll chat about the party itself. We'll chat about them being part of Government of National Unity and where they see this country going and where they see the Freedom Front going in a post-democratic South Africa that is evolving. At 11 o'clock, we're going to do our World of Work feature, and today we're discussing how to grow leaders in the workplace. 11:30 on our Health and Wellness feature, we're going to talk about body dysmorphia and what that is all about. That's the show coming up over the next 3 hours.
Clement Manyathela, Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
So let's listen a bit to him getting responses. I heard there's somebody who I think is a DA supporter, or the person said they are not a DA supporter, but they call out Clement for being partisan. They say he should deliver his news in a neutral way. And so he will respond to why that is not true for him. Let's keep listening.
Fix
92.7
and 106 FM.
Morning, Clement. Listening to your show and your introduction on the employment equity discussion, it is a very emotive and very much a grey area discussion. But I am disappointed, that you are also buying into the narrative that if anybody sort of challenge or questions employment equity, then you're anti-transformation. That's absolutely not true. The problem with many of our laws in the country is the way that it's being implemented and applied and the consequences of that. So, a very emotional discussion, and a lot of people do put blinkers on. But I do expect more, Clement. Come now, you need to guide the conversation, not be partisan and making statements that if you are challenging employment equity, you're anti-transformation. I do not think that is a correct statement to make. And please, I am not a DA supporter. Thanks. Listening to the conversation.
Yeah, so first, I think you're wrong in that I never said that when you're challenging the legislation, then you're anti-transformation. In fact, I started even with Bongani to say it's not enough to just say, oh, this law is unconstitutional, or you're challenging it on technicality. I'm interested to know, how else do you think we can redress? That's what I'm interested to know. Of course, if there is a law that is unconstitutional, that must be challenged in court. We need constitutional clarity. I don't have a problem with that.
I think Clement is trying to say here, tell me your heart. There's a lack of transformation in South Africa. People are being born and growing old in the same place. And that is not a social contract that people make with each other as citizens. We all are singing a song for the collective good. We are all, the best of us, trying to hold up to good standards where we accommodate each other, so that we relate well together. And so what happens now when we see people grow old and we know the injustice of apartheid, the lack of education in their homes, we see people stuck. And at the same time, we are talking about creating an economy and jobs. And those jobs need to be created by not only the white people who are privileged. Job creation should be a topic for the black people themselves, creating jobs themselves, hiring each other, and contributing to a less hostile, less criminal South Africa. Because inequality is unsustainable. The poor go on to eat the rich, and the system has to reset itself. It's like a stock market that is constantly going upwards and upwards and upwards. Somebody needs to be fearing a collapse. When a country is greatly unequal, people should be fearing that things might start burning. People who should be showing up as employees clean in the morning will be waking up from shacks and be required to do dignified work where they are confident in the workplace and perform at their best. So there's a counterintuitiveness here about white people who are not interested in transformation or are not speaking about it. They are merely speaking about creation of jobs. Well, who gets to work at these jobs? Will those black people be healthy and well, coming from good places, returning to homes that are safe for their kids, and their kids are getting a good education with electricity on? It's not just about you and your company, your doors being open, people arriving, you being satisfied with the money that you make. You have to have a mind about the environmental impact. Have to do an environmental impact study of your workplace. Is it one that is helping people be mentally well as well? Or does your job reward them monetarily and rob them of sanity? Because your business needs to shut down, man. You're running Satan's business. You're a pimp. So he's saying there has to be a conversation about transformation, and people need to open their hearts and be godly. They need to be caring. If not godly or virtuous, just be practical about the hostile South Africa that you and your kids are going to live in. You're going to be old when the consequences arrive. You're going to be on a walking stick, that white person, in a country with very young, violent black people who hate people of your kind. And I don't think Clement is really being heard here. People just want to speak about the technicalities of this law, the unconstitutionality of it, the rule of law. What about the lives of the people? Does the DA love people? Does the DA love black people?
But I can make a statement that I think the DA is anti-transformation because I say that with context. Because I've observed, I've watched the Democratic Alliance, I've reported about the DA, I have covered the DA's conferences, I've been part of discussions about what their position is on race. And I think what some of you sometimes forget is that I actually get paid to have an opinion.
Oh, yeah.
My job here is actually to have an opinion.
Yeah.
And your job, responsibility, or part of the show is to have your own opinion. And sometimes I get swayed. Sometimes I'm like, Lebohang, you're making a good point there. Sometimes you think I enlighten you. That's a whole process of us having a conversation. That doesn't mean that I'm always right or that you're always right. So when I challenge something and I say, I think the president is indecisive or I think the DA is anti-transformation, there's a context I give you. And again, that's why I spend so much time framing my comments. I've tried not to be a presenter or a host of a show who just comes and says, the DA says. No, I actually go and read. Like this morning, I read the legislation. I read the act. I write. Why? Because I want to be informed when I talk to you, to show you that I've actually given it thought. And based on the thought I've given this is my view. And I would like you to do the same. I'd like you to actually go read the legislation, come back and say, I've actually heard what you said, Clement, but this is where I disagree, or this is where I agree. So I think the DA is anti-transformation because I've never really had them give me a proper policy argument that says to me that they are interested. And I'm not just basing it on this court case. This is a comment I've made before. So let me know what you think of this particular legislation. I'm telling you what I think. I'm saying the DA keeps lying and saying, colored people are going to lose jobs. Oh, Indian people in KwaZulu-Natal, you must be scared. Fear-mongering. But when I read the legislation, that's not what I'm getting.
Yeah.
In fact, when I read the legislation, government says, if you are a company there in KwaZulu-Natal, you can set your own targets based on your own context. That's not what the DA is going to tell you.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't serve them and their narrative. Kustas, let's start with Tshepo first. Tshepo is calling us from Pretoria. Tshepo, what are your thoughts? Go ahead.
Hi, Clement.
Sure.
Clement, my input is that you need to restructure the economy, not just transform the boards. Because what we have a situation where 90% of our salaries, they go to businesses that we don't own. They go to businesses that we didn't set up. So if you to change and redirect our money to businesses that we own, then eventually you will have an economy that's transformed. Because if you are to do the legislation, even if you are to set up a transformation fund, which is also a joke on its own, because if you think about it, the whole government is a transformation fund, because the government, the black people who are in government today, they could transform the economy through the policies they put up in place. But they don't do that. They rather have a 100 billion transformation fund. At the same time, you have a situation where a few people who own the economy, they will always safeguard themselves because they don't want anyone to take bread from them. But if me and you, our salaries were directed towards businesses that reflect our values, whether they're white-owned or black-owned, ultimately we'll have a situation where the economy is transformed. So to look at it from a legislation point of view and only looking at the employment equity, the transformation exercise that DA is doing, it will only be short-sighted. What we need to do is to educate people about the power of the money that you have, because people will disrespect you if you don't use your money in a way that it serves you and it serves your community. And that's my take on this, because everything else will always be a repeat until you restructure the way the economy is. If you have 80% of the community supporting a business, that business has to, in a way, comply with what the community wants. And if they don't, the community can move their money to the next business that will comply with and work with the community.
And I suppose, Tshepo, that's going to take a mind shift as well, right? Because there are some big businesses that come into our communities and we support them. And then when Tshepo starts, his little small business there on the side, offering the same services. Sometimes as communities, we don't support that business because, some people think white is right. So I'm always going to go to big business because I trust their products more. And I think there's a shifting of the mind that is also needed among ourselves in our own communities to know that, just because this big business is black owned doesn't mean the service is terrible. But equally so, just because it's black owned doesn't mean they're going to offer a proper service. So it's okay also for us to criticize a company that is black owned. But I'm just saying, let's shift our thinking. Let's understand that power, our buying power, and exercise that. And I agree with you that that's going to help us then get to a better place.
Yeah. Let me just drop it right there. Hope you've enjoyed this. Hope you like, hope you comment, hope you share, and you transform. I'll see you in the next one.